Happy birthday, ugly. The woman said that with a smirk, then suddenly grabbed the cake from the table and flung it straight at my wife's face. For a moment, I couldn't process what had happened. Seeing the cake plastered across my wife's face, I finally understood the situation, and anger took over me. How dare you do that to my wife? The woman laughed loudly, completely unaware that something would happen soon that would leave her pale with fear. My name is Charles Jones. At 30 years old, I work as the manager for modern artist Jennifer Davis. The reason I became an art manager, a somewhat unique profession, goes back to my high school days. Back then, I wasn't seriously thinking about my future and was just drifting along day by day. One day, a friend invited me to an art exhibit, saying he had an extra ticket and the casual decision would go on to change my life. I was in the basketball team throughout middle and high school, so I hadn't been interested in art at all. But at that exhibit, I was blown away by Jennifer Davis's work. The boldness of her colors, the contrasting delicacy of her lines, and most of all, the powerful impact her art had, kept me rooted in front of her paintings. They had a breathtaking beauty, and just by looking at them, I felt a deep stirring within. I can't believe someone can create art like this. In that moment, my dream for the future was set. I was determined to work in the art world and someday collaborate with a great artist like Jennifer Davis. Around that time, I grew close to a girl named Barbara, a classmate who was part of the art club. Now that I was interested in art, I instantly bonded with her over our shared passion for visiting museums and galleries. Absorbing all the knowledge she had about art, I found myself diving deeper into the art world. Barbara and I quickly became very special to each other. No one else at school shared our level of enthusiasm for art, and I looked forward to our conversations about it more than anything. She felt the same way, and before long, we were always together, eventually starting to date. I loved the contrast between her deep knowledge of art and her cheerful, carefree personality. And even now, my feelings haven't changed. We also shared a common background. Both our parents had divorced when we were young. Though I lived with my mom and Barbara with her dad, we understood each other's subtle distance from family due to our similar upbringings. Over time, it felt like we developed a bond even stronger than family to fill that void of loneliness. One day, Barbara told me about a career called art management. There's more to working in the art world than just being an artist. Supporting artists behind the scenes is just as important. That one remark showed me the path I should take. Right after high school, I took immediate action. I decided to work part-time at a gallery during the day and attend a language school at night. My plan was to build connections in the art management world, improve my language skills for communicating with international clients and artists. About 6 months into this whirlwind routine, the gallery's president approached me with an unexpected proposal. Jones, your hard work has been a real help. You're interested in art management, right? I instantly perked up at the mention of art management. Yes, absolutely. I've got an interesting opportunity. Are you curious? I leaned forward eagerly. Of course. What's the opportunity? Do you know Jennifer Davis? She's looking for a manager. I mentioned a bit about you, and she expressed an interest in meeting you. What do you think? Jennifer Davis. The Jennifer Davis. I couldn't believe my ears. The very artist who sparked my interest in the art world wanted to meet me. It felt too surreal to be true. In recent years, Jennifer Davis's reputation as a painter had soared, and her works were now trading for over $10 million per piece. Not just familiar, Jennifer Davis is the very artist who inspired my interest in art. But is this really true? It might be hard to believe, but it's true. I'd really like you to meet her. Though still a bit skeptical, I eagerly accepted the president's offer. When I finally met Jennifer Davis, she took an immediate liking to me for reasons I couldn't quite understand. I've made my choice. It's you. Nice to meet you, Charles Jones. Oh, thank you. I look forward to working with you. Without much of an interview, I was hired as her manager. Later, I asked her, "Why did you decide to make me your manager that day?" "I always trust my instincts above all else." She said this with a carefree smile. Jennifer Davis was bright and charming, without the difficult temperament often associated with artists. I was thrilled to have been chosen by her and committed myself to working day and night, giving my all to support her. Meanwhile, Barbara was also making strides toward her dream. She had started working part-time at an art magazine's editorial department, beginning her path as an editor. We both landed jobs in the art world, chasing our dreams and working tirelessly. Though we spent less time together compared to high school, we continued to encourage each other, feeling fulfilled in our lives. A few years later, her hard work was finally recognized, and she was offered a full-time position. It was unheard of for someone like Barbara, who only had a high school diploma and had started as a part-timer, to become a full-time employee at such a prestigious publishing house. Yet, with her extensive knowledge of art and incredible work ethic, she'd become indispensable to the editorial team, and at the editor-in-chief's request, she was hired permanently. Meanwhile, under Jennifer Davis, I had also become someone she couldn't do without, giving my all to my duties. As we both grew more confident in our careers, we decided it was time to get married. I proposed to her. "Barbara, will you marry me?" I asked her directly at the museum where I'd first been struck by Jennifer Davis's work. "Yes, I'd love to, though I half expected you'd let the proposal just fizzle out." Barbara accepted with a bright smile. "I'm already looking forward to the day when we bring our kids here, and I can tell them, 'This is where your dad proposed to me.' Now, I get to be with her for life." How many men are lucky enough to marry a woman they truly want to be with forever? I truly felt like the luckiest man in the world. As a wedding gift, Davis sent us a painting. It was one of her largest works, far bigger than most of her pieces. I started sketching this little by little, thinking someday you two would marry, but you two took so long, it ended up this huge. Davis laughed playfully as she said this. It meant so much that this world-renowned artist had gone to such lengths for us. No matter how many millions this painting might fetch, let's never sell it. Today, that masterpiece, which would easily sell for tens of millions, hangs proudly in our living room. After our wedding, Barbara continued working at the art magazine. "I really want to have your child, Charles, but I don't want to give up my job. Can I keep working for a while longer?" I also wanted kids, but Barbara's happiness was most important, so I respected her decision. Even after we married, Barbara stayed busy with her editorial work, and I was constantly occupied managing Jennifer Davis, an incredibly popular artist. There were nights we couldn't make it home, but we were bound by a bond that couldn't easily break. Even when I get home late at night, Barbara, despite her own busy schedule, would have meals prepped and waiting for me. Amid these busy yet happy days, something happened one day. An unexpected contract offer came my way from Next Entertainment Co., one of America's top amusement corporations. Next Entertainment was constructing a massive cultural complex near the city where Barbara and I lived. This complex would include a movie theater, concert hall, and an art gallery. Set to open next year, they were pushing forward at full speed to meet the deadline. They wanted to make Jennifer Davis's artwork one of the highlights of this facility. For a moment, I doubted if this was real. Davis was indeed a well-known contemporary artist, but Next Entertainment was more focused on media and entertainment, with little connection to the arts. Their representative explained that Next Entertainment aimed to evolve into a company that promotes all forms of culture, not just entertainment. They plan to actively engage in the arts, and this new cultural complex was their first major step. They wanted Davis's work to be a centerpiece. The representative added, "The president would like to meet you personally." I decided to meet with the president to understand his intentions. A few days later, Tom Williams, the president of Next Entertainment, visited the Jennifer Davis Gallery. It was immediately clear he was wealthy. Everything he wore was high-end, and he arrived at the gallery in a Rolls-Royce. President Williams entered the meeting room, and as soon as he sat down, he got straight to business, not wasting a second. "We'd like to purchase 15 pieces from this gallery for $0.92 million. How does that sound?" The moment I heard that number, my heart pounded. A transaction of $0.92 million was beyond anything I'd ever handled. Moreover, the pieces he was interested in were ones I was authorized to negotiate over without consulting Davis. I was excited at the unique chance to decide on such a large deal independently, but I kept my composure and responded calmly. "Thank you very much for the proposal. I'd like some time to carefully consider it. Could you give me a little while?" President Williams seemed slightly taken aback. Perhaps he'd expected an immediate response. "Understood. I look forward to hearing back, however. We don't have much time, so please let us know within 2 or 3 days." With that, he promptly stood up, returned to his Rolls-Royce, and departed. He may not have even stayed in the gallery for 10 minutes. I was surprised he'd leave without even looking at the pieces he was willing to pay such an enormous amount for. Still, I figured, as the president of a major corporation, he must truly be a busy man. That night, eager to share the news about this major contract, I hurried home to tell Barbara. When I opened the front door, Barbara greeted me right away. But unlike my unusually high spirits, Barbara looked more downcast than usual. "Barbara, what's wrong? You don't look so good." "Just, work's been exhausting." Barbara sighed, her shoulders slumping with fatigue. Setting aside my news for the moment, I sat across from her at the dining table, ready to listen. "Did something bad happen?" "Sorry, Charles. I know you're tired too." Barbara had never let anything bother her visibly before, and she'd never complained to me about work. I could tell this was really getting to her. "Well, recently, someone joined our company through connections, but their work ethic is terrible. It's been stressing me out every day. Since I work directly for Jennifer Davis, I don't deal with workplace dynamics, so it didn't immediately resonate with me. But I listened, understanding that these issues were common in other workplaces. Her name's Sarah Williams, and she's technically a year older than me. I'm assigned as her trainer. But even when she's 2 hours late, she doesn't apologize, and instead of doing her tasks, she just starts painting her nails at her desk. What? People like that actually exist. But surely you've tried to talk to her about it, right? Of course. But when I point it out, she sulks or gets defensive. Then, somehow, I'm the one getting called in by the editor-in-chief and told to be a little kinder to Williams. If you explained the whole story, wouldn't the editor-in-chief understand? Barbara let out a big sigh. It's not that simple. Apparently, Sarah Williams was hired as a special favor from the president, and the editor-in-chief honestly doesn't know how to handle it. Charles, have you heard of a company called Next Entertainment? Williams is the president's daughter. My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't believe the name Next Entertainment, the company that had just offered me a major contract, would come up here. You mean she's Tom Williams' daughter? Yes. How do you know that? Not wanting to complicate things, I decided not to mention the big contract with Next Entertainment just yet. She constantly brings up her father's name. Even when I try to correct her mistakes, she'll say, "Should I tell my dad?" I guess that's how she's resolved any issue that's come her way. I was speechless. I hadn't had any negative impression of Next Entertainment before, but knowing their president had raised such an unpleasant person was disappointing. Recently, she asked me, "What does your husband do?" I told her he's in management. She assumed that meant you're a celebrity manager, and since then, she's been calling me the servant's wife. I was taken aback by Sarah Williams' sheer pettiness. After all, in the real world, the vast majority of wives are the servant's wife, so to speak. Sarah Williams probably sees herself as upper class, different from ordinary people. I thought about correcting her, but telling the truth might just make things even more complicated, so I decided to let it go. Barbara sighed again, looking utterly drained. That's pretty awful. But tomorrow's your birthday, so let's forget about it for now and switch gears. I've booked a table at a fancy hotel restaurant recommended by Davis. Let's have a fun night and unwind. When I said that, Barbara managed a slight smile, even as I encouraged her to relax. My mind was already in work mode, thinking I needed to look deeper into Next Entertainment and President Williams. But the next day, Barbara and I would encounter Sarah Williams in an unexpected way. I wanted Barbara to forget about work stress for her birthday, so I did my best to stay upbeat. As soon as we stepped into the hotel lobby, a luxurious chandelier and soft piano music welcomed us. The polished marble floors, elegant decor, and well-dressed guests in designer attire left us in awe. We'd never had the chance to visit such a high-end hotel, having just recently moved on from part-time jobs, and the surreal atmosphere held us spellbound for a moment. This is incredible. I've never had dinner in a place like this. Until last year, the best we could do for birthdays was a family restaurant. Seeing Barbara smile eased my mind a bit. I could tell she was beginning to regain some of her natural cheerfulness. I hoped this would help her forget about work for a while. We took the elevator up to the top floor restaurant. Outside the windows, the city's nightscape spread before us. As we settled into our reserved table, gazing at the view, Barbara said, "If we're going to live in the world of art, we need to keep gaining new experiences." I didn't know we could see such a beautiful night view right here in this city. You're right. Let's work hard, earn more, and treat ourselves to more of these moments. Just then, I heard a familiar voice from behind. Is that Charles and Barbara? Davis, who often stayed at this hotel, happened to be dining here and had noticed us. Davis, it's been a while. Thank you so much for the wedding gift painting. We'll treasure it forever. It's fine, really. You've told me that every time we've met, and this is the seventh time now, she said, laughing. It's Barbara's birthday today, and since you recommended this restaurant, we decided to give it a try. It's just as wonderful as you said. Oh, is that so? Happy birthday, Barbara. I'll leave you two to enjoy yourselves. Have a lovely evening. With that, Davis returned to her seat. Davis is so down to earth. For such a great artist, she's completely unpretentious. Yeah, I've never seen her act superior to anyone. I know, right? Even though I've only met her a few times, I feel like we really get along. She's such a unique person. As we were talking, a voice came from behind Barbara. Well, I thought it might be you, and here you are. Barbara turned around, and the moment she saw the woman's face, she froze. The woman looked Barbara up and down, then smirked in a mocking way. Oh, Barbara, you actually put some effort into dressing up tonight. Cute. I thought all you had were those cheap outfits you usually wear. She seemed to have already had a few glasses of wine, as her speech was slightly slurred. She glanced at me and sneered. Oh, is this the servant I've heard about? At that moment, I realized this woman was Sarah Williams. All I wanted tonight was for Barbara to forget about Sarah Williams and enjoy her birthday, but of all people, she had to be here. With a smug smile, Sarah looked down on us, her gaze full of disdain. I couldn't fathom how someone who had yet to accomplish anything herself could act so arrogant. She was the complete opposite of Davis. Sarah, what are you doing here? I come here often. My dad's friend owns this hotel. But honestly, how did a high school grad like you afford such a pricey place? Isn't it tough on a servant's salary? It was clear Sarah was the kind of person who had to put others down to feel good about herself. I sensed she was not someone I should engage with seriously. So I firmly said, Today's Barbara's birthday. We'd like to spend it alone. So could you please leave? Sarah's face darkened, and she glared at me before glancing over at the cake on the table. She smirked, muttered, Oh, so it's your birthday, then suddenly picked up the cake and flung it straight at Barbara's face. For a moment, I couldn't process what had just happened. The other guests fell silent, turning their gaze toward us. Seeing the cake plastered across Barbara's face, I finally grasped the situation and lost control, shouting in anger. How dare you do that to my wife? Sarah laughed loudly. Oh, don't shout over something like this. I'm the daughter of the president of Next Entertainment. People like you, regular folk, I can handle however I please. With an air of arrogance, she continued. Oh, but my dad told me not to bother with people from the lower world, so I'll leave it at this. My anger reached its limit, and just as I stood up, ready to confront her, Davis hurried over to our table. Charles, Barbara, are you okay? Davis looked at us with concern, her voice gentle and reassuring. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. I couldn't let someone like this get under my skin. I was grateful to Davis for stepping in. After seeing the entire exchange with Sarah, I asked her, would it be okay if I called the president of Next Entertainment here? Of course, she replied without hesitation. Sarah looked at us, bewildered, not understanding what was going on. I called right then. "Mr. Tom Williams, I'll get straight to the point about the contract you proposed the other day. I'm canceling it." Sarah started looking around anxiously, unable to grasp the situation. Her face, once flushed with wine, had turned pale. "Your father will be here shortly." "No, if you were dealing with my dad, you should have told me sooner. I could have made things much easier for you, you know." Sensing that things were taking a bad turn, Sarah suddenly adopted a humble attitude toward me, but I ignored her entirely, waiting for her father's arrival. The president rushed in, visibly flustered. "What's this about calling off the deal all of a sudden? It was supposed to be a win-win for both of us." Spotting me, he skipped any greeting and launched straight into criticism. "Dad." It was then that President Williams noticed Sarah's presence. "What's Sarah doing here?" he asked, looking at her in surprise. "There are too many eyes here. Why don't we discuss this in my suite?" suggested Davis. President Williams glanced at Davis with a puzzled look. Since she maintained her privacy in public, he hadn't realized the woman standing next to me was Jennifer Davis herself. "Thank you, Davis," I said, intentionally using her name. Only then did the president realize who she was, and he hurriedly showed a flustered apology. "Right this way," Davis said, leading us to the suite where she was staying. In my favorite hotel, where I'm a regular, this young lady was displaying the most appalling lack of class. Davis said, glaring at Sarah. "And who is this old lady? My dad is the president of Next Entertainment. Are you sure you know who you're talking to?" Sarah cast a defiant look at Davis. President Williams quickly covered Sarah's mouth. "My deepest apologies, Davis." "What do you mean?" Having always believed her father was the most important person around, Sarah still hadn't grasped the situation, maintaining her arrogant posture with her legs crossed. "This is Davis Jennifer, a renowned contemporary artist," he said, trying to make his stubborn daughter understand. Sarah's face shifted as she looked at Davis, suddenly recognizing her. Despite her lack of commitment to her job, she worked at an art magazine and clearly knew the name Davis Jennifer. "But Davis, what do you mean by canceling the contract?" President Williams leaned forward, pressing her. "There aren't many companies capable of buying so many of your works at this price. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" He appeared to have fully doubled down, trying to assert that he still held control over the contract. Davis stared at President Williams in silence. "Let me be frank," he continued. "There are plenty of other artists. If necessary, we can simply purchase works from another famous painter." His words, though polite, revealed a fundamental arrogance and insensitivity. It was clear he lacked respect for artists. After a moment's thought, Davis finally spoke. "I leave all decisions regarding the sale of my work to my manager, Charles Jones, who is here. Whether he chooses to sell in bulk, individually, or to hold on to every piece, I fully support his choice. If he decides not to sell to someone, I will not go against that decision." She then turned to President Williams, saying, "Please take a look at this," and played a video on her phone. As they watched, I could see the color drain from both Sarah and her father's faces. This video has already been uploaded to a video sharing site. It seems someone who was there recorded the whole incident. The video clearly showed Sarah throwing a cake at Barbara, capturing the entire incident. "To me, Charles is like a son. How could you let something like this happen to his dear wife on her birthday? Davis sternly chastised Sarah. President Williams, I cannot sell Davis's works to you, I said, reaffirming the contract's cancellation. President Williams, determined, tried to press further. I apologize for my daughter's poor behavior, but is it really rational to cancel the contract over this? Are you absolutely sure? His attitude implied that we were the ones making a mistake. This video has already spread widely. Soon, not only your daughter but also your company will face public backlash. Moreover, as president, your lack of respect for art is glaringly obvious. If we were to partner with a company like yours, it would be a betrayal to all those who love Davis Jennifer's work. President Williams shook with rage, slamming his fist on the table. Sarah, your selfish actions are about to cause huge damage to my company. He shouted at Sarah. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. She sobbed, apologizing to him. At that moment, Barbara emerged from the shower. Thank you, Davis. I feel much better now. I even borrowed a bathrobe. I truly appreciate it. No need to worry, dear. You've been through a lot, Davis said, gently pulling Barbara close and patting her head. Barbara looked slightly surprised but then relaxed, showing a look of relief as she hugged Davis tightly. You should apologize to Barbara before your father, I said to Sarah. I'm terribly sorry, Sarah murmured in a faint voice, directing her apology to Barbara. Afterward, that video spread rapidly on social media, and Next Entertainment faced intense backlash beyond anything I had anticipated. Their stock price plummeted, investors for the cultural complex withdrew, and the facility's opening was postponed indefinitely. Tom Williams was forced to take responsibility. Following a shareholders' resolution, he was removed from his position as president. Sarah also left Barbara's company soon after. With the video now public, she became a laughingstock, nicknamed Hysteric Lady, and was shunned wherever she went. It's said she now leads a reclusive life. A few days later, Davis suddenly announced her retirement. Leaving a document that transferred the rights to all her remaining works to me, she vanished without a trace. The news shocked the art world, as Davis was still in her 50s, quite young to retire as a painter. Following her retirement announcement, the value of her works skyrocketed. The unpublished pieces I held would likely fetch astonishing prices. While I had effectively become a millionaire overnight, I couldn't feel pure joy. Since Davis's disappearance, there had been an emptiness in my heart. Feeling a strange sense of melancholy, I returned home. Opening the living room door, I found Barbara quietly standing, gazing at that special painting. Barbara, what's on your mind? Barbara stood in silence for a while, without turning around, before finally speaking. She left, came back, and then disappeared again. She really does whatever she pleases, doesn't she? The moment I heard her words, something tugged at my heart. Did Barbara know the truth? I walked up beside her, thinking she might have figured it out. Did you know? She finally turned to me, offering a slight, wistful smile. It's more of a feeling, I guess. There was something about the way Davis looked at me. It wasn't ordinary. And when I really look at this painting, it almost feels like a mother holding her child. Her words struck a deep chord within me. Also, her being at the restaurant on my birthday. It seemed like a coincidence. But maybe she was waiting for us. Maybe she'd already decided to retire and wanted to see me one last time. Am I overthinking? It was only a few days before Davis disappeared that I had learned she was Barbara's biological mother. I can't stand myself after everything that's happened. I blamed President Williams and Sarah, but I'm no better. I abandoned my own child to pursue a life as an artist. I'm the worst kind of mother. Davis had once confessed to me that she had given up raising her biological daughter to fully dedicate herself to her art. And then she vanished from our lives. I may have been oblivious until she told me. But Barbara, her real daughter, had sensed that Davis felt something special for her. Let's go find her, I suggested, but Barbara shook her head. It's okay. I think it's her freedom that allowed her to create such incredible art. We don't need to chase her down. As she said this, Barbara gazed softly at the painting in the living room. Watching her, I was reminded of the immense legacy Jennifer had left behind. Davis had always watched over Barbara from afar. That's why she hired me, Barbara's boyfriend, as her manager. Choosing a life as an artist while still feeling tied to her daughter, imagining her inner struggle made my chest tighten. At the same time, it struck me that, despite her genius, she was a bit clumsy in her own way, yet deeply caring. That was so like Davis. If we ever have a child, maybe she'll pop back up out of nowhere, Barbara said with a small smile. There was a sense of relief and forgiveness in her expression, replacing any anger or sadness. Maybe so. If she shows up again, will you meet her as my wife or as her daughter? Of course, as her daughter. I'll make her acknowledge me as her daughter and finally do some motherly things for me. Barbara laughed as she said this, her eyes glistening with tears. I nodded deeply at her words. You're right. When our child is born, we'll make sure she does all the things a grandma should do. With that, the two of us laughed together, just as we always did, in front of Jennifer Davis's painting.